Fragment Event for Crocod has launched today. He is currently in the game. And yes, he is a hound. And no, he is not a good boy. He is a bad, bad boy. And his partner in crime is Shy'ek, a fusion champion from last year. They're both in the Orc faction. I'm going to talk about both of these champions in today's video. We're going to start with Crocod, just talking about him because a lot of you maybe you weren't around for Shy'ek, or maybe you didn't complete that fusion. And so we want to know, is Crocod just worth it on his own? And then if you do have Shy'ek, perhaps he's sitting in your vault, you never built him out. Is he worth taking out of the vault if you get Crocod? So we're going to answer all of those questions. And then in the second half of the video, we're going to, of course, give you our no-fail fusion plan. So those of you who are deciding to go after Crocod have the best chance of success. I am Kro'Khad. This is Kro'Khad Plays Raid Shadow Legends. Let's get started. Let's start here with Packmaster Shy'ek. Now, this guy is a Force Affinity HP-based legendary from the Orcs faction, just like Crocod is. And this guy was a fusion before, and he was sort of underwhelming. We all assumed there would be eventually a hound that was paired with this guy. You'll see why in just a moment. And now we're getting him. It took a long time, which was really disappointing. This guy, you'll see, we'll give him a full review here. I'll try to do it a little bit quickly, but yeah, let's just go ahead and jump into it. Let's start with the stats here. HP based champion, 22,305 HP, which is okay. It's okay for an HP based support. It's not amazing. 1,222 defense, solid. That's solid defense. So this guy's going to be relatively tanky. And again, he is a support champion. I know it says HP, but he's not an HP based damage dealer. He's an HP based support. You're going to see what I mean. Speed 98, pretty average. Resistance of 50 is nice, so he's got some built-in resistance there and a little bit of accuracy. There are two skills in his kit that need accuracy if you want to use them. I think one is pretty critical. I think it's pretty critical if you're going to use this guy, you're going to want accuracy on him. We'll talk more about that as we go. So what you're going to see in this kit is that every ability has a second conditional thing around hounds. So when he originally came out, it would say stuff like teams up with ally Terror Beast, Gore Mask, Hound Spawn, Hellfang, Fellhounds, and Stitch Beasts. Those are all the, the dogs in the game. Now they've added Crocod. Okay, so great. So we've got another one, and this is good because obviously he's a legendary. We all speculated this was coming, but it took so long for this to happen. But okay, so anytime he attacks with his A1, he has a 70% chance of placing a decreased defense, and then all hounds team up with him. His A1 could be ridiculous if you had like multiple copies of Crocod or, Fellhound or whoever. But generally, that's not going to make a great team because the hounds aren't particularly useful, right? So it's like Shy'ek and Crocod, maybe Fellhound. But the idea here is you're getting an ally attack, but only for hounds, okay? Now on the A2, removes all debuffs from this champion and heals them by 50% of their max HP. So it's basically on a 3-turn cooldown. He cleanses himself, puts a nice heal on himself, then places a shield on himself. And the value of the shield is equal to any surplus healed. The shield cannot be removed, stolen, transferred if at least one hound is on the team. And then finally places a taunt and a reflect damage on himself, again, that cannot be removed, stolen, or transferred if you have a hound on the team. So with Crocod, he's going to have a cleanse, a heal, a shield, a reflect damage, and a taunt. Now the taunt, it can be very powerful. Again, if we're talking about Hydra, taunt works differently than it used to in Hydra, but there's still some utility to be had there. So, you can think about that. Okay. Now the A3 fills the turn meter of all allies by 25%. Nice. This is on a 3-turn cooldown. Also has a 100% chance of placing a block buffs debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. It can't be resisted if at least one hound is on the same team. So you don't need accuracy for this particular skill. But remember, you need the accuracy for the decreased defense, and you're going to need the accuracy for this hex. So this is the passive. When attacked, places a hex debuff on the attacker for 1 turn. Ally attacks on targets under a hex debuff placed by this champion deal 20% more damage. Now, this is important. The ally attacks on the target do not have to be hound allies. They could be any allies on the team. So if Shy'ek has put a hex on a Hydra head, everybody does 20% more damage to that head. Now, here's the thing. Remember, we have a taunt, right? A taunt that can't be removed. So potentially, if anything can be taunted, you're going to get opportunities to then, use this passive hex. In Hydra, I don't know exactly how this works. There were some theory crafters who put together Shy'ek teams like when he first came out. So we're going to have to revisit some of those teams. I do like the aura of all battle speed by 19%. That's nice. Means that you don't need to find a better aura lead if you don't have one, right? You can still use him as the aura lead, and that's going to be pretty good. So as you can see, underwhelming without the extra stuff, right? Without the Hound conditional bonuses to each skill, he's really underwhelming. He doesn't do nearly enough. He's a taunt champion. That's basically what he is. Not enough. But the ally attack, the count. Oh, I forgot about this. When this champion is attacked, all ally hounds counterattack. So you've got ally attack with hounds. You've got counterattack with hounds. You've got that hex and that passive damage boost. You've got the taunt and the reflect damage. And then you've got the turn meter fill, the block buffs, and all that stuff. So with hounds, his kit is actually pretty interesting. It is pretty interesting. And I think, we've talked the most about Hydra right now, but we're going to find other places to use this guy. And I think teams to build around the hounds now, focused on Crocods and Fellhounds and Shy'eks, and maybe, some other champions that we can bring in and kind of flesh that team out. Okay, so that is Shy'ek. Let's now look at the dog of the hour, Crocod here. I do like his look. He looks kind of like a hyena, which is pretty cool. I mean, he looks mean. He looks very mean. But all right, so cool looking hound. I think the best looking hound in the game. I think that's fair to say that he's the best looking hound in the game. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at his kit. Now, first of all, he is a magic affinity attack-based champion from the Orcs faction. And you can see not a lot of HP at under 15,000. Pretty standard, though. 1,729 attack. This is insane levels of attack. You're going to be able to build his attack so high. You're starting above 1,700. I don't know how many champions start above 1,700 legendaries or epics or whatever. It's a handful, if that. I think when you get up to 1,700, you're entering really mythical territory, right? There are a few. I know there are a few up here, but not that many. Okay, defense is low. He's going to be squishy. 100 speed, which is, again, pretty average. He's got the extra crit damage, a little bit of resist, and no accuracy. I don't think he's going to need accuracy. We'll have to see. So he does have an AoE A1, which is awesome because that combos with Packmaster Shy'ek's ally attack and counterattack really well. You're going to hit everything. So this is going to be good for wave content. Potentially, I don't know if the duo is going to be great for arena, but there is the potential there because Shy'ek has that turn meter fill. So potentially you could pair him with, say, Crocod and, I don't know, maybe a Fellhound or just the two of them, and then get somebody else in there. They could speed them up a little bit more, and you could get to these abilities. So this is an AoE. It deals single target damage to each target individually rather than AoE damage, so the mitigations will happen differently. We'll also ignore all reflect damage buffs and effects, ally protection buffs and effects, and pain link debuffs. Obviously, pain link is for Hydra. So looks like a great Hydra A1. Might have some other utility as well. This attack also deals double damage when counterattacking if Packmaster Shy'ek is on the team. So he's going to get a bonus on top of Shy'ek getting a bonus. So now that synergy is becoming even stronger. Let's look at the A2. Another AoE places an extra hit on enemies under 2 or more debuffs. Has a 100% chance of placing a leech and a weaken debuff for 2 turns. So he can place 2 debuffs. These debuffs cannot be resisted. Can't be resisted. I love it. They can't be resisted if Packmaster Shy'ek is on the team. Now, you can weak hit. Remember, he is not void affinity. You can weak hit, but the debuff cannot be resisted, which is incredibly strong if Shy'ek is on the team. So you get the 2 debuffs, good debuffs, weakens a good debuff, leech is a good debuff, AoE hit, extra hit on enemies under debuffs, can't be resisted. So the synergy looks very strong. A3 on a 3-turn cooldown attacks 1 enemy, ignores 50% of the target's defense. We always love abilities that ignore 50% of the target's defense because that means that you can potentially get to 100% of ignore defense. We'll also ignore life barrier and poison cloud. So we're ignoring pain link here, and we're ignoring life barrier and poison cloud here. So great Hydra skills, I guess, you know, like extra little utilities. And effects that redirect attack damage or debuffs to another target. This is actually interesting. He ignores defense that redirect attacks, damage, or debuffs to another target. Think UDK, right? So this is what we're talking about. UDK redirects an attack to him. So you can actually use him in arena to assassinate somebody through UDK without touching UDK. That's pretty cool. Repeats this attack once if Packmaster Shy'ek is on the team. So again, I do think there is some arena utility here. I think people are going to come up with some creative ways to use this pairing in arena. All right, now let's look at his passive. Increases this champion's attack by 5% when killing an enemy or decapitating a Hydra head. Increases it by double if Shy'ek is on the team. Instantly activates Dominant Predator skill against the Hydra head when an ally is devoured by that head if Packmaster Shy'ek is on the team. So this is Dominant Predator. So it's the ignore defense hit that's really hard. And remember, he repeats it if Packmaster Shy'ek is on the team. So when an ally is devoured, he hits that head twice with this massive nuke, which could potentially free your ally immediately, right? So you're basically going to have your whole team intact the whole time, as long as Crocod isn't the one who gets devoured, which of course could be a problem. So as you can see, I think he has a pretty cool kit even without the duo bonuses. AoE that ignores a bunch of stuff, AoE that gets an extra hit, drops some good debuffs. Really nice hard-hitting single target damage here on the A3. And then he's got this scaling damage that's going to last, especially in Hydra, but long fights, right? He's going to ramp this up as long as he can kill something. Not like Clan Boss. He's not going to get this ramp, right? Because he has to kill an enemy. So this could be like in wave content. Think Spider, he'll ramp up really quickly in Spider. So I think this guy is going to hit really hard with the high attack. I don't know what his multipliers are. We'll have to figure that out as we go. The double AoE is always nice. The weaken AoE is really nice. And then the ignored defense is really nice. I think this guy's going to be a massive damage dealer. And I think if you have Packmaster Shy'ek, you're going to want to pull him out of the vault. You're going to want to pair up these two for the Hydra boss. Definitely. And probably other wave content. My guess is they're going to be able to duo like Hard Spider really well too. Because that's kind of a bonkers thing. If you make Shy'ek the Spiderling target every time Shy'ek gets hit, Crocod will counterattack with his A1. Right? Could be bonkers. Could be bonkers. All right, so that is the review of the champions. Let's go ahead and now move on to the calendar, the Fragment calendar, so we can get you your no-fail fusion plan. Here is the Fragment event calendar, and behind me you will see, let me just move myself out of the way here. Let's see if I can get that. Okay. So we have 130 total fragments, but 20 of them come from tournaments. So remember, we always ignore those. We just count on the other ones. So there are 110 fragments available to everybody because you never know if you're going to win a tournament or not. The 10 extras are from the Champion Training Tournament here and then the Champion Chase Tournament over here. So just be aware if you are competitive in tournaments, those are where the extra fragments are. But otherwise, we have 110 fragments. And just a reminder, we haven't had an event like this in a while without one of the weird bonus events that they've been doing as a hero's path or an extra summon rush. So this is sort of a throwback a little bit to the way we were seeing fusions last year and like the middle of last year, like last summer or earlier. But summon rush has 15 fragments. Champion Chase Tournament, if you don't count the extra fragments, the bonus 10 fragments, has 15. So what this means is you can't skip either shard event, okay? Basically, the summon rush is going to have 5 fragments, and then they're going to have a second batch of 10 fragments for more investment. And exact same thing is going to be true for the Champion Chase Tournament. So you're going to have a batch of 5 fragments and then another batch of 10 later on. So you can do one of these events just to get the 5 fragments, and the other one you can go all in on and get all 15. And then if you do all of the other events, right? You've skipped 10 fragments here. Those are the only 10 you're allowed to do. So you have to complete all of the other events and you will successfully complete the fragment fusion. Now, you do have a couple of options to, like, you don't have to do that. You could complete the Summon Rush and the Fire Knight tournament. That would give you 10 additional fragments to then kind of distribute somewhere else. You could skip one champion training event, or you could potentially say, you know, I want to skip like 2 dungeon divers, or I want to skip, you know, a gear enhancement event or whatever it is that you want to skip. So that's entirely up to you how you want to do that. But just be aware there are 10 additional fragments in this calendar, and you have to decide how to separate them. But you cannot skip a fragment event this time around. You just don't have that option. Okay. So today is Monday, July 28th. It's going to be later in the day when you see this video. But the first day of the fusion is basically always nothing anyway, because we want to hold off for the dungeon divers, which doesn't start until tomorrow. So here we've got this dragon tournament. Now remember, the dragon tournament takes about 2,000 energy, maybe a little bit more. Kind of depends on where you're farming. But if you're farming stage 20, which is the most efficient, it's just around 2,000. It's like 2030 or 2050, something like that on average. Now, remember, you don't have to have all the energy for the entire event right now. I'm going to talk about how much energy that you need, but you're going to need to dig into your resources here to get into the energy that you need. So either you've saved it and it's in your mailbox, or you're buying it from your clan shop or the 3v3 store, or wherever you're getting your extra energy, or you're buying it with gems. That's what you're doing. Now, Dungeon Divers takes 5k energy if you're farming stage 20 of dungeons. This Ice Golem could be put into the Dungeon Divers, the first Dungeon Divers, or it could be put into the second Dungeon Divers. So do not do any Ice Golem in the middle here. You want to pick. You want to pick whether you're going into the first Dungeon Divers or into the second Dungeon Divers. Now, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my 2k of the Ice Golem right here, and I'm going to put it into the first Dungeon Divers. So remember, this energy is basically free, you know, because you're investing the 5k in the Dungeon Divers. You can think of it that way. But you get that double dip, right? Now, if you can, try to get a triple dip with the champ training. That's awesome. I can do that with both Dragon and Ice Golem. I have a solo for Dragon, I have a duo for Ice Golem, and that allows me to farm up chickens while I'm doing these tournaments. And so that's going to get me some of the way into the champion training. And then what I'll probably do is I'll finish off this Dungeon Divers and this champion training with campaign. Now I'm going to do that because I have more time at the beginning. And yeah, we'll get that done. And that'll probably be about 1,500 to 2,000 energy. Again, maybe another 2k here in this champion training event. Of course, you could not do that. You could just put the extra energy into the dragon tournament if you wanted. That's what I would recommend. Go for some speed items there. So it would just be 1,000 more energy there if you're doing that. Campaign doesn't reward you with as many Dungeon Divers points, so it takes more energy. Gear enhancement is 20 million silver. These 2 dungeon tournaments should get you the silver that you need if you don't have it right now. But if you've got at least 10 million silver, let's say, on you, you're in good shape. If you've got 20 million silver on you, you're golden. No problem. If you have less than that, you might have to do things like forge some gear in the forge and sell it for silver, or maybe do a gear cleanse and sell it for silver, or buy some silver in the shop. You know, you can always do stuff like that. Okay, the Summon Rush is going to be pretty typical. I'm expecting this to be 6 Sacreds. Now, the 6 Sacreds are just going to be for the 5 fragments. It's usually somewhere around 11 Sacreds for the next batch. So I'm probably just going to go in for the 6 Sacreds to get my 5. And then the 10 would be here. It would be an additional 5 Sacreds. Now, you might think, well, it's a better rate if you keep going. Obviously, that's what they want to do. They want to give you a discount, so that entices you to spend more sacred shards. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to hold off. Now, this is not the 2 times weekend. This is the 2 times weekend here. And I believe we're back around at 2 times voids. I think that is, but let me know in the comments below if I'm off on that. I know we just had ancients, so it's not going to be ancients. So I think we're doing voids next. So that means I'm more inclined to just go after all 15 shards in the champion chase, because I think it's going to be a better use of resources. I want to pull my voids during a 2x voids anyway. And then, of course, I can use fragment champions and, you know, permanent fusions and stuff to max out the champion chase more easily than I can just get more sacreds to use summon rushes. So that's my plan. Don't be overly enticed by the progressive that they put into this weekend. They're going to put a nice progressive into the summon rush weekend to try to entice you to go after all 15 fragments. Again, if you are resource rich, feel free to do whatever you want. Feel free to just go for it. Okay, now, classic arena is easy. Just keep doing your arena. Both of these classic arenas are going to be pretty easy. We've got the summon rush and the champion chase now. So another 20 million here for this gear enhancement event. Another 20 million for the gear enhancement event down at the bottom. This spider tournament, I'm going to put into this Dungeon Divers here. And I'm probably going to put all of it. So I'm just going to do 5K of spider right into the Dungeon Divers. For me, I have a solo spider champion who can do spider hard mode 10. So that's also going to help me with this champion training. I'm going to be able to put 4 food champions in and just run it. So that's going to be awesome. But if you don't have that, I still suggest that you just put all 5,000 silver into, 5,000 energy into the spider tournament, because you get so much silver out of the spider tournament, and you can just go ahead and burn that. Now, one thing that you may want to think about is we only have a few days left on the event dungeon. So for any of these, if you wanted to put your extra energy into the event dungeon, that will count towards the Dungeon Divers events. And I do think that the event dungeon will still be open for the first, I think it's the first 2 events, but it might just be the first one. I don't think it'll be available for the 3rd Dungeon Divers event. So if you're like, no, I'm going to put all of my extra energy into the event dungeon, try to get myself some pinpoint gear, that makes total sense. And you can, you know, do that. You could even overspend on that if you wanted to. I highly recommend it, especially if you are just like being able to push up the stages of the event dungeon now, because it's the end of it. Get as much as you can in the next few days. All right, Fire Knight tournament's got to go into Dungeon Divers 3, which means overspending here, and that's going to be 5K energy on this Fire Knights tournament. And then again, the champion chase is at the end. So what we can see is we don't have any tournaments outside of the Dungeon Divers events. That's great. That means all of that energy is going to go in, so we're not wasting energy there. If you want to overspend on the event dungeon, if you want to overspend on campaign for, you know, champion training, you can do that. But what we're looking at is probably, again, what we typically see, somewhere around 17,000 energy minimum. We're talking about 6 sacreds and maybe somewhere in the vicinity of like maybe 30 voids. 30 voids might do it. Something like that. Could be more like, yeah, probably 30, could be 40. And then we're talking about 60 million silver. And again, you don't have to have all that silver right now. You'll probably pick up 50 million silver, 40 to 50 million silver from all of the Dungeon Divers events that you're running over the course of this Fragment Event calendar. All right, so that is it. That is your no-fail fusion plan. Let me know in the comments below if I missed anything. And also let me know, are you going for Crocod? Do you think he's worth it even if you don't have Shy'ek? And if you do have Shy'ek, do you already have him built, or are you going to be building him to pair with his duo? All right, that is it for me today. Thanks so much for hanging out. I have been Kro'Khad. I will see you in another video soon.